Hi, I'm Jessica Frost-Ballas, and I'm here today at the Scrapbook.com studios to show a variety of cards using the new Hero Arts products. So let's get started. The first card I'm going to make today uses our new color layering Swallowtail Butterfly, and I've added an action wobbler to give it a little bit of an interactive feel. The first thing we're going to do is use the Holtz stamp platform to stamp the layers of our butterfly. I've lined up the detail layer and the middle layer of my butterfly inside the stamp platform and a piece of white cardstock. First, we'll ink up the detail layer with the Hero Arts Intense Black ink, and then close the lid. The nice thing about the stamp platform is that if we don't get a good impression, we can go ahead and stamp it again. So now what I'm going to do is just turn the paper around, and I've already lined up my middle layer so that it's lined up to stamp. The next layer I'm using our Hero Arts Butter Bar soft ink, and this will give us our first layer of shading. Next we'll stamp our final layer of the butterfly using the Hero Arts Bold Inks in Dandelion. And here is our multi-step butterfly. You can see the layers from the lighter yellow and the darker yellow. We're going to let this dry because we're actually going to come back and heat emboss the detailed black using our embossing powder for a raised look. While our butterfly is drying, we're going to go ahead and stamp the background stamp. It's our Brushstrokes Bold Prints using our soft leaf ink. As I close the lid, I push down a little bit in the center to make sure that the ink transfers to the paper and we get good coverage across the full base. I'm going to let this air dry for a few seconds, and then I'm going to trim it down to a 4 by 5 1/4 base. Our butterfly is still drying, so while we're waiting, we'll stamp the sentiment. First, I'm going to prep the black cardstock with a powder tool to make sure my embossing powder doesn't stick where I don't want it. Then I'll ink up the stamp using a VersaMark pad and stamp it onto the black cardstock. Next, we'll heat emboss the sentiment using white embossing powder from Hero Arts. We'll just put this gold cardstock under here to catch the stray embossing powder. Now I'll dry my embossing powder with the heat gun. Our butterfly is stamped, but I like to add a little extra dimension by adding black detail embossing powder over top of the black stamping. First, I prep the butterfly with my powder tool, and then I ink the stamp with VersaMark. I re-stamp the detail lines of the butterfly, and then I add embossing powder. To really make my butterfly pop, I'm using the detailed black embossing powder from Hero Arts. I've brought in the Big Shot to die cut my butterfly using our coordinating dies, which I've held in place with a piece of washi tape. And our butterfly pops out. Next, we'll stamp the flower, which is another layering stamp using 3 shades of Hero Arts ink. Our darkest shade is Raspberry Jam, and we'll stamp that detailed layered first. Our middle layer, we're using Red Royal shadow ink. And our lightest layer uses the Pale Tomato shadow ink. We'll stamp the center of our flowers using Butter Bar and Dandelion. The detail layer is stamped in Butter Bar. And our solid layer is stamped in Dandelion. Finally, we'll stamp our stem in Field Green's shadow ink. Next, we'll bring in the Big Shot to die cut the flower and the stem. Off camera, I stamped the center of the flower one more time so that I could die cut it separately from the actual flower. I'm going to run them through the Big Shot to cut out with the coordinating dies. And here I've got my flower, the center of the flower, and my stem. And now it's time to finish the card. First, we'll adhere the background panel to the card base. Off camera, I trimmed my sentiment down to a fishtail banner, and next we'll adhere this to the card. Next, we'll add the stem and flower. And finally, we'll make our butterfly actually flutter by adhering him to the card with an action wobbler. We'll trim off the stem that hangs off the bottom of the card. And that's it. Our little butterfly flutters when he hangs over the flower. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more from Scrapbook.com, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a message. Happy crafting!